The battlefield lay under a bruised sky as twilight bled into night. War veterans, hardened by decades of conflict and scarred both in body and spirit, had gathered once more on a stretch of land where history had been written in blood. These soldiers, once the proud defenders of their nations, now found themselves confronting an enemy far more inexplicable than any human adversary. They had faced countless foes in conventional warfare, but nothing in their past could have prepared them for the terror lurking in the shadows. In the early hours of a chilly autumn evening, Captain Jonathan Hayes and his team arrived at a long-abandoned trench near the border of an unknown territory. The remnants of warfare, the rusted artillery, shattered uniforms, and faded medals, whispered stories of valor and loss. As they set up their temporary command post, an unnatural silence descended. The air grew heavy, as if burdened by an unseen presence. Veteran Sergeant Miguel Alvarez, whose eyes had witnessed too many horrors, murmured, "There's something not right tonight." His tone was low and steady, betraying neither fear nor resignation, only a hardened resolve born from years of combat. The first sign came as a flicker at the edge of their vision, a figure in tattered military garb, moving soundlessly among the ruins. It was not alive, yet not entirely dead either. As the team scanned the darkness with their night vision goggles, ghostly shapes emerged, a phalanx of spectral soldiers drifting between broken walls and shattered memories. Among these apparitions, one phenomenon stood out, a phantom sniper, perched on a ruined tower, its silhouette outlined by an eerie luminescence. Captain Hayes felt a chill seep into his bones. Here, on this forsaken field, the boundaries between mortal struggle and supernatural dread had blurred. Even as doubts crept into their minds, the veterans refused to yield. They were, after all, the embodiment of resilience. With their seasoned instincts and battle-honed tactics, they began to fortify their position. Alvarez led a reconnaissance party into the labyrinth of dilapidated trenches. Every step was measured, every shadow a potential threat. The ghostly figures seemed to mirror their movements, as if drawn by the same magnetic pull of conflict. In hushed voices and exchanged glances, the men silently vowed to stand fast against this unearthly menace. As midnight approached, the phenomenon intensified. The phantom sniper's cold, unyielding gaze tracked every move, while other spectral figures formed into groups, almost as if they were reenacting long-forgotten battles from eras past. Yet, these war ghosts were different from the spirits of honor one might expect. They exuded malice and despair, their eyes hollow voids reflecting endless sorrow. Despite the fear that clawed at their hearts, the veterans steeled themselves. They had learned over the years that the true measure of a soldier was not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to face it head-on. By the break of dawn, it was clear that this was no mere haunting. The supernatural forces had a purpose, to sow chaos and test the mettle of those who had long dedicated their lives to combat. In that fateful moment, as the first rays of sunlight pierced the dark canopy overhead, Captain Hayes rallied his men. "We have faced death on many battlefields," he declared, his voice resonant with authority, "and we shall face this terror as well. For every ghost that rises, we shall answer with the spirit of humanity." With that, the veterans prepared for a confrontation that would challenge not only their physical strength but the very essence of their resolve. The day unfolded with an intensity that defied rational explanation. The battlefield, once a stage for conventional warfare, had transformed into a realm where time and reality intermingled. As the veterans repositioned themselves, the supernatural foes grew bolder. Ethereal figures materialized from the swirling mist, their forms shifting between recognizable silhouettes of enemy combatants and unearthly beings that defied classification. Among these, the phantom sniper remained a constant threat. Its spectral rifle, glowing with an otherworldly blue light, fired silent shots that seemed to anticipate every movement. Each time one of the veterans felt the sting of a near miss, they realized that their adversary was not bound by the laws of nature. Private Daniel Reed, a young soldier whose courage was forged in the crucible of modern conflict, recalled the first time he had seen the sniper's gaze. "It wasn't just a shot, it was as if the very air trembled with its force," he later recounted, his voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. The veterans began to document the surreal events with a mix of military precision and scientific curiosity. They marked every apparition, recorded every unnatural sound, and noted the positions of these spectral enemies. Their training in conventional warfare did little to equip them for the paranormal, yet they adapted quickly. Under Captain Hayes's leadership, They established a perimeter of vigilance around their position, combining technology with old-fashioned grit. Infrared cameras, motion sensors, and even ancient compasses were deployed to capture any sign of the supernatural onslaught. During a brief lull in the chaos, Sergeant Alvarez led a small unit to investigate a nearby ruined farmhouse, a location rumored to have been the epicenter of the hauntings. Inside, the air was thick with an oppressive energy, and the walls bore marks that seemed to be clawed by unseen hands. In a dusty diary found amidst the rubble, there were entries from a long-dead soldier describing battles that transcended time, a war fought not only with bullets and blades but with forces that belonged to another realm. This discovery added a chilling layer to the mystery. These were not random apparitions, but echoes of a conflict that had seeped through the cracks of history. Back at the trench, the tension was palpable. As dusk fell once more, the spectral enemies coalesced into formations reminiscent of ancient armies. Their silent advance was punctuated by bursts of unnatural light, as if guided by some spectral command. The veterans, though battle-weary and haunted by memories of past wars, found strength in their unity. In hushed camaraderie, they exchanged stories of previous encounters, tales of survival against insurmountable odds that now served as a beacon of hope. "We are the human spirit incarnate," Captain Hayes reminded them. "Even when faced with the impossible, we rise." The night's assault escalated into a surreal melee. Phantom snipers fired their ghostly rounds, and ghostly apparitions swept across the battlefield like silent reapers. Amidst the chaos, the veterans displayed acts of heroism that defied logic. Private Reed, despite being shaken by the spectral barrage, rallied a group of his comrades to flank a particularly aggressive group of apparitions. Their coordinated efforts, honed through years of combat, allowed them to create a temporary safe zone, a small pocket of defiance amid a sea of darkness. Yet, as the night deepened, questions began to arise. What drove these supernatural forces to emerge now? Were they the restless souls of fallen soldiers seeking retribution, or malevolent entities feeding on the fear of the living? The veterans did not have time to ponder these mysteries deeply. Survival was paramount. But in the midst of the chaos, a quiet understanding began to form, a recognition that this new kind of warfare demanded not just physical might but an unbreakable will. For every ghost that emerged, the human spirit blazed all the brighter, a defiant beacon in the consuming dark. As the first light of a new dawn broke over the scarred battlefield, the supernatural onslaught reached its climax. The spectral enemy, having terrorized the veterans for a long, harrowing night, now gathered its full might for a final push. In the distance, the phantom sniper's silhouette was unmistakable against the pale sky, its eyes glowing with an intensity that belied its ghostly form. The atmosphere was charged with an almost tangible malice, a dark force determined to extinguish the enduring flame of human resilience. Captain Hayes, standing at the forefront of his weary but resolute team, called for a united charge. "This is our moment," he roared, his voice echoing over the trenches and into the open field. "We will not let these phantoms dictate our fate. Today, we fight not just for our lives, but for the honor of every soul that has ever dared to stand against tyranny, whether human or spectral." With that rallying cry, the veterans surged forward. In a display of raw determination, they unleashed a barrage of coordinated fire. Machine guns roared and flares erupted, casting stark shadows against the creeping darkness. Amid the hail of gunfire, the spectral figures recoiled as though struck by an unseen force. It was as if the collective will of these battle-hardened men had ignited a counterforce, turning their defiance into a tangible weapon against the unearthly invaders. Private Reed, leading a small squad on the flank, encountered the phantom sniper head-on. In a tense standoff that seemed to suspend time, the young soldier squared his gaze with the sniper's ethereal eyes. For a moment, the battlefield fell silent, and the only sound was the rapid beating of hearts. Then, with a steady hand and a resolute mind, Reed fired, a shot that seemed to shatter not only the air but the very fabric of the supernatural assault. The sniper's form wavered, and in that fleeting moment, the veterans sensed that their determination was slowly bending the will of darkness. Elsewhere, Sergeant Alvarez coordinated a daring maneuver to trap a group of ghostly apparitions in a collapsed building. With precision and tactical acumen, his unit encircled the enemy, forcing them into a confined space where their spectral numbers offered little advantage. The ensuing clash was a surreal dance of light and shadow. Bullets traced luminous paths through the air while ghostly figures dissolved into motes of mist under the concentrated firepower of human resolve. Hour by hour, the tide of battle began to turn. The supernatural enemies, once seemingly unstoppable, began to falter as the relentless courage of the veterans shone through. Every act of valor, every sacrifice made in the name of survival, became a counterweight to the darkness. In the crucible of combat, the human spirit proved its indomitable strength, an enduring testament to the adage that even in the face of the impossible, hope can triumph. As the final remnants of the spectral forces were vanquished, silence reclaimed the battlefield. The air, once thick with the stench of fear and decay, now vibrated with the echoes of victory. The veterans, battered yet unbowed, gathered amidst the ruins. Their faces bore the marks of both exhaustion and relief, a silent acknowledgement that they had stared into the abyss and emerged triumphant. In that bittersweet moment of respite, they understood that their fight was not merely against supernatural foes, but against despair itself and the quiet aftermath of the night's horrors. The surviving veterans gathered around a makeshift fire. The embers flickered as they shared quiet reflections on the extraordinary events that had unfolded. Their hearts, though heavy with the scars of battle, now burned with the knowledge that humanity's spirit was not so easily extinguished, even by enemies that defied explanation. Captain Hayes, gazing into the dancing flames, spoke softly. In every battle, whether against men or the unknown, we learn that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Today, we proved that even the darkest forces can be met with the unyielding light of our determination. His words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with each soul present. This tale of supernatural warfare is a reminder to us all. In the face of adversity, be it in the chaos of battle or the shadows of the unknown, the human spirit remains our greatest weapon. It is a testament to the truth that when united, even the most fearsome foes can be overcome. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the uncharted territories of war and the supernatural. If you found inspiration in this story and believe in the enduring strength of humanity, please remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support keeps our spirit alive and empowers us to bring you more gripping war stories and unforgettable adventures. Courage is not the absence of fear but the triumph over it. Stay brave, stay resilient, and until next time, WOT, humans fight back.